Well, what have you been up to?
Well, these short weeks always feel busy, oddly enough, which is funny. But the community has kept us busy. I think with everything going on with Ignite, with the Live 360 conference that a lot of our friends were at as well last week. So we've seen a lot of announcements come out. A lot of things around Intune and automation and things like that that I would be happy to share if you'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. Um, First thing that we have here is an update from the Intune support team. So, um, the administrative templates that you can create now when you go into Intune and create a configuration profile, you can select administrative templates. New administrative templates are not going to be allowed starting in the next service release of Intune, which will be mid to late December. And I wanted to point this out because these settings are just simply moving into this settings catalog. So Microsoft has been working on this migration for some time now, moving more and more settings into the settings catalog. And I really wanted to bring this up because Mike Donosky had a follow up tweet that did mention that the imported ADMX template experience. So if you're importing custom ADMXs today, those are not changing. Specifically, this is just those administrative templates that you have in configuration profiles. So you'll be able to use the settings catalog he mentioned for things like Edge, Office, OneDrive, Chrome, FS Logix, Visual Studio, Clipchamp. Those were the specific products he called out. So um, if there was any concern about the importing ADMX templates going away, no worries there. This is just streamlining things over to the settings catalog, which in general I think is a good thing. Makes it a lot easier for us. Um, and then I think I mentioned last week that one of the big announcements on the Intune side of things to come out of Ignite was the enhanced hardware inventory being released. Kind of funny, I think. What was that late Monday night, Johan? I reached out to you asking, "Hey, do you see the settings to actually configure enhanced hardware inventory in your tenant?" Lo and behold, neither of us did.
Nope. I was like, nope, it's not there.
So, as it turns out, it seems that feature was quietly at first delayed until December. So, I wanted to make sure that we referenced this post from Lior. I think that I mentioned this post specifically last week, but you can see here that it's been updated just to reflect that feature is meant to come out in December now. So a little bit of a change there on the deadline. Then I'll just hit a couple of other things real quick. Did see this post from Damien on automatically populating device groups based on user groups in Azure Automation. So as always, Damien's got a bunch of great solutions around automating things in Intune and Entra. So I wanted to point this out if this is something that you would like to use in your organization. Came across another blog post as well from our friend Akos, who I see has joined us today. He posted on basically integrating Autopilot onboarding with OSDCloud. So Akos goes through a couple of things here, setting up the certificates and app registration in order to make this work. But essentially, this would allow you to um, image a device with the OSDCloud and then actually import it into Autopilot. So some really great stuff here. I wanted to make sure that we shared this. Thanks for this blog post, Akos. And then just a few more quick things. One, came across a tweet from Arya posting about recall is back. So Recall is back in an insider preview build. It is off by default for commercial OS, and it's back only for Copilot Plus ARM PCs. So there are a couple of caveats there, but just be aware that Recall has made its way back into the insider builds.
Yeah, there was a mention that it will come for Intel and AMD later, but I couldn't see any like timeline or anything. So my guess is as good as anyone. But I put my money on some point next year.
Yeah, I think that's good money right there. Last two things here. One, came across this blog post from Martin Bankston that looked interesting. Basically, using Intune to associate certain file types that could potentially be harmful to Notepad, so that if you were to happen to download one of these things, so you can see some of the examples that he used here, JavaScript files, HTA files, VBS files, WSF, things like that. Associating those file types with Notepad, so that if they do happen to get to the point that they're opened in plain text. So a little bit of a nice security measure there. And then the last thing that I came across, I don't think I had come across this resource before, but I saw somebody post about the Windows 11 Security Book had been updated. And this is some documentation that Microsoft puts out that has some recommendations around, you can see here the table of contents in the book, hardware security, OS security, things like that. Things that we as admins need to consider in how we're securing our users and our devices. So this looked pretty useful to me. Have you come across this before, Johan?
No, have not.
All right. Well,
Have
it looks
not.
like you and I have a little bit of reading to do after eating a whole bunch of turkey tomorrow.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So that was a lot of the stuff that I'd come across over the last week. But Johan, you're joining us. You're back again this week after what sounds like a fantastic Ignite conference. You want to tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Absolutely, yes. It was great to be able to go to Ignite and basically have it in my backyard. But I can take the train every morning and take the train home every night. But it was so great to be back in an in-person large conference like Ignite. I remember first time back in 2015 coming to McCormick and just walking mile after mile back and forth. Luckily this year it was slightly smaller, so only 14,000 people, but still I got in my steps walking back and forth for sure. But as you mentioned, there was a good chunk of news coming out of Ignite. I had a chance to present a session there, and I also saw a question coming about that session. So I actually started to put together a blog post with the highlights from the session, and also with links to the scripts, etc., that was showcased or that I showcased in it. So if you guys give me a day or two here, I should have that one published. Yeah, no, it was fantastic to be back at Ignite. I really liked that conference.
One of the really nice things that it sounded like when you and I were talking about it a little bit is I know that you were kind of hanging out at one of the booths for quite a while. And so the benefit of being in person, it sounded like you got to talk with quite a few people for a long time.
Yeah, so the Intune area, they had two booths in the expo area of Ignite, and it was staffed by both Microsoft product team members, but also there was almost 200 MVPs on site in total. So there were a few MVPs always. I stumbled across Dean there, for example, Steve Weiner as well. But we had our shifts in the booth, and there was just a steady stream of people asking questions all day long. I'm so happy I kept my voice. It was like constant talking that it's somewhat dry, conference air, and yeah, but it was fun. It was fun.
Awesome.
On the note of Ignite, let me go ahead and share my screen here. First of all, I did start to write the blog post. I just took a screenshot here showing that I am working on it. So if you just give me a day or two, I will get something going with that one. But Microsoft, I'm not sure if you showed this last week, but they did release the Book of News. So if you want a summary of everything that was released throughout the week of Ignite, this is a good read, of course. A fairly long read, but there is a table of contents, so you can go ahead and, pick what you're interested in. For example, Intune, and you will see everything that is related to Intune and more in this one. One of the questions that we got all the time in the booth was confusion between Autopatch and Hotpatch, because Hotpatch was announced for Windows 11 clients coming at some point next year here. But you can already, in GA, but you can already start to play around with it now. And Autopatch is the mechanism that helps deliver it. But if you go to your Intune tenant already today, assuming you do have the deployment service license and all that good stuff, which is also required for Autopatch. So if I go to my devices here, I'm going to click Windows just to make the list a little bit smaller on the left side. But when I click quality updates, so not the normal update rings, but the quality updates, and create a new profile and pick quality update preview, you will see that, just going to give it a name here. You do have that option now to, when available, apply without restarting the device. So the whole point of this is basically, if you patch monthly today, obviously you will have to reboot the device at least 12 times a year. The idea here is to reduce that to 4. So you basically you patch fully in January, and then you skip rebooting in February, March, and then full reboot again in April. And now in this first version, this is only security updates. That's how they can make it fairly small, these updates in between. But I'm looking forward to play around and test with this. So quite excited about this feature. Then it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. One of the earlier office hours, Matt was asking about the connected cache part. So I actually spent some time earlier this week finally getting my act together after being away on the conference, put together a step-by-step guide how to set up, verify, and basically test out the standalone connected cache, which has the fancy name Connected Cache for Enterprise and Education. So fairly just a few pages long guide, 11, 12 steps, something like that. How to set it up, how to make the configurations, and finally, in the end, how to verify that it works, and also how you can see it on both the client side that it's using the cache server, but also metrics on the Azure side of things to see that stuff is working as expected. I was only able to get it up to 80% on Monday, but I will see if we can squeeze those numbers up a little bit better throughout the week here. So, yeah, that was what I had in terms of updates.